Welcome to Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico, Episode 8, Buster Clarkson, Great Among Greats. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico, Episode 8. As I said, we're going to talk about Buster Clarkson tonight. My name is Adam Dorowski. I'm the product director at Sports Reference, and I am joined again, as always, by my dear friend Jorge Colon Delgado. How are you this evening, Jorge?
Very happy to be with you tonight in this a great program about Buster Clarkson. But before we talk about Buster Clarkson, I would like to talk about a little bit about your new designation. You're going to work in a very important committee of the Negro Leagues with Saber.
Yes, Saber established a new task force and it's called the Special Negro Leagues and Teams Committee. And we're going to be meeting over the next few months to reevaluate what leagues and teams should be considered Major League. As you know, in December of 2020, when Major League Baseball made its announcement that 7 Negro Leagues would be considered major leagues, there was a lot of opportunity for more great teams and leagues that weren't quite covered under those 7 leagues. So this Saber task force is going to be investigating some of the great teams before 1920, some of the great teams after 1948, and some of the strong independent teams in that 1920 to 1948 era. Because right now, just 1920 to 1948 has that Negro League the Major League status, so to speak. Obviously, it's a very complicated topic. The Negro Leagues were not like the American and National League. There were teams that played at many different levels. Great players played all over the place, as we've talked about many times on this show. Often they weren't even playing within the United States leagues. So it's a very complicated topic, and a lot of incredible researchers are going to be investigating that topic. And I'm thrilled to be just a small part of that project.
Adam, and do you think they could consider any a league outside the United States? Let's say Mexico, Cuba, maybe Puerto Rico?
That'll be really interesting. I did see one person shared an article about a case for, I think it was a 2 or 3 year span for the Mexican League. Again, we haven't really started discussing it yet, but it was just some of the evidence, so to speak, that was contributed. So I'm very excited to see what types of evidence comes forward and if there's an opportunity to do something like that. I mean, it would be definitely thinking outside the box. Traditionally, we've only considered the leagues in the United States, but a lot of the talent of the United States was going elsewhere. So it could be an opportunity to think about things in that way. So I'm not sure how it'll look yet, but it's certainly an interesting idea.
What kind of evidence would you need, or that committee should be looking at to consider a league strong to be considered a big league? What do you think?
Well, specifically, the committee the subcommittee that I'm going to be on is looking at the independent teams from 1920 to 48. So some of the things that we'll be looking at are, the number of high quality players that were on an independent team, and then looking at who that they were playing against, and if there's any statistical evidence that we have of them playing against other leagues or teams that already have that major league designation. So some of the more obvious ones that I think will come up a lot are the independent years that the Homestead Grays played outside of the leagues. So you have Josh Gibson's stats there that you can compare to some of the other major Negro League teams and some of the white major league teams as well.
Oh, great! So, congratulations! I know you're going to do a great job. You like your work, and you do so good analysis. So you're a great asset for that committee.
Oh, I appreciate that. It was a huge honor to be asked to take part in it, and I can't wait to get started.
Yes, man. And today we're just going to talk of one ball player that I think he's not too much mentioned about. You can correct me, among the greatest Negro leaguers, and he has great numbers in Puerto Rico. And you did a great research about Buster Clarkson. So let's see what you have here and talk about a little bit of the great James Buster Clarkson.
Perfect. Yeah. So I started with kind of a few slides just to establish who Buster Clarkson is, because a lot of people might not know him. He only played a handful of seasons in the Negro Leagues, but as we'll look at his credentials and his statistics, we'll see that this is one of the greats of the game. So Buster Clarkson was a shortstop, played a lot of third base as well, and he also did some managing, some of that in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean series. He was born in 1915 in South Carolina. He lived to 1998 and died in Jeannette, Pennsylvania, which I believe the Jeannette, Pennsylvania High School recently voted him into their inaugural Hall of Fame class, which is really great to see a high school acknowledging a player like this who played so many years ago. He was a right-handed batter and thrower. He was a big guy. 5'11" height was, that wasn't huge for the day, but he was a bulky guy at 210. So you had a very large, strong man playing shortstop. And from all accounts, he played it very well. He went to college, which I think Bob Kendrick points this out all the time. Like, there were a lot of Negro League players who went to college at that time because there wasn't the, quote unquote, organized minor league system. So the colleges tended to take that role on. And he went to Wilberforce University. A couple Hall of Famers also went there. Ray Brown and Saul White also went there as well. So why is he important? Why do we have a whole show dedicated to him? And we can go to the next slide if you'd like. Here we go. So he only played the 5 seasons in the major Negro Leagues, and we'll look at those stats. He did play 2 seasons in the post-major Negro Leagues, 1949 and 50. So as we mentioned when talking about the Saber Task Force, those are 2 seasons that will be possibly looked at as eventually being major because there were still a lot of players there. Integration did not happen immediately. Great players like Buster Clarkson, Willard Brown, many others were still playing in the Negro Leagues at that time. And what's interesting about Buster Clarkson is he played 14 games for the Boston Braves in 1952. So he's one of the less than 50 players who played in the major Negro Leagues and the ALNL. He was a 2-time East-West All-Star, once in 1940 and then again in 1949. He played 7 seasons in the quote-unquote organized minors, so that's the U.S. system. Most of that was in the Braves system, I believe. He played 11 seasons in Puerto Rico, and that's the big thing we're talking about tonight. 11 seasons in Puerto Rico that landed him in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to have a lot of great photos and stories and stats about that as well. He played in 4 Caribbean series. I'll admit, a few months ago, I was not very familiar with the Caribbean series, but I've got some books that are helping me get up to speed on it. I've got all the rosters up to 1960 and all the stats, and it's been really interesting seeing the great teams from Puerto Rico and Panama and Cuba and Venezuela that were involved in those early series. There were a lot of incredibly talented teams in that series. And in addition to that, he also played 4 seasons in Mexico. He played 1 in Cuba, and he played 1 in the Provincial League in Canada. So the next 2 slides, I won't read every single name, but I wanted to, I think we might have skipped ahead 2 slides.
No, I don't know what happened that the first list of teammates, you can read it in your over there because I don't have it here.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to point out some of the amazing players that he played with over the course of his career in the Negro Leagues. I mean, he played for the Homestead Grays. He played for some other great teams. So he played with Josh Gibson and Willard Brown and so many great Hall of Famers. I think there were 7 or 8 Hall of Famers he played with. In the minor leagues, he played with some great players like Max Lanier and forget some other I forget who the shortstop was on the Milwaukee Braves at that time. That Brogan, that's what it was. Johnny Logan, sorry, one of those guys. He was the older shortstop that ended up taking the young hotshots job and kind of delaying his entrance to the major leagues maybe a little bit. But then, in Puerto Rico, he played with some incredible players, and we're going to talk a lot about these great teams. He played with Clemente, Mays, Brown, Thurman, Ruben Gomez, George Crow, Jim Gillett. Like all these guys were on Santurce, just an incredible team. Canena Marquez, he played with Vic Power. Even Don Zimmer was the shortstop on that great 1953, or maybe he was the 55 team. Maybe he was both. I'm sure you'll tell me in the later slides. Mexico, he played with Tehigo, Bragana, Willard Brown again, Ted Strong, Pedro Pages, Santos Amaro, a couple Mexican native players who I recommend learning about, Angel Castro and Jesus Valenzuela, one a hitter and one a pitcher that were absolutely great. We've got Roberto Estaela and Art Pennington, Ted Radcliffe, just an incredible number of players who we played with. In Cuba, he was playing with Salazar and Bragana and even Sal Magli and Max Lanier again. And then even up in Canada, he was playing with Terrace McDuffie and Bobby Estalella. So just everywhere he went, he was surrounded by great players. And I think that helps show that he was among these greats. There was a lot of talent, not just in the major leagues, not just in the Negro Leagues. There was a lot of great talent all over the place at that time.
Alan, you have with you the team list of teammates number 1.
I do right now. Yeah. So, in the Negro Leagues, he played with Josh Gibson, Oscar Charleston, Buck Leonard, Ray Brown. So this is like a who's who. Biz Mackey, Monty Irvin, Mule Suttles, Ray Dandridge, Willie Wells, Leon Day, and Larry Doby. Those are just the Hall of Famers that he played with. In the National League, he was teammates with Eddie Matthews, Warren Spahn, Sam Jethro, George Crow. And then even in the minors, it was Johnny Logan. I was struggling to remember, but even players like Lenny Pearson, George Crow again, Luis Olmo, Gene Mock, Canena Marquez, Wally Post, Gene Conley, Willard Brown, Marvin Williams, another great one from outsider baseball, Pantalones Santiago, which is just so fun to say. Red Murph, who people may know as the scout who discovered Nolan Ryan. He was a pitcher on that team. Jim Fanning, the Expos GM. So just a ton of talent everywhere that he went, and he was certainly among that talent.
Yep.
So now I have a lot of stats to show, and this slide is intentionally bare because this is what his baseball reference page looked like back in 2018. He just had the 14 games with the Boston Braves. But if you skip ahead to the next slide, you can see that now on his baseball reference page, there's a lot more. There's all of his time in the major Negro Leagues. We are appropriately honoring his military service, where he served from 1943 to 45. So you can see that in 38, he came up with the Pittsburgh Crawfords. So right away, his very first manager is Oscar Charleston. Played with the Toledo Crawfords, the Newark Eagles, Philadelphia Stars, and then the Homestead Grays before a little bit more with the Stars in 1946. And you see a lot of movement and a lot of gaps. And we're going to talk about those in the next few slides because Buster Clarkson did not just play in the Negro Leagues. He played all over the place. So these are some stats that I have collected from a wide variety of sources. This is everything from books on Cuban and Mexican baseball to Jorge's incredible Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico website and the major and minor league data that we have on Baseball Reference. I've collected it all into one huge list of all the places that I'm aware that he played. And, found it interesting to add up his statistics, not just overall, but in each of those different countries / environments. So it's hard to see here at the bottom, but I've collected about 6,700 at-bats for Buster Clarkson, 2,117 hits, 328 home runs, 1,374 runs batted in, a 312 batting average, and a 527 slugging percentage. So, it's when you see just 159 games that he has in the major Negro leagues, it can be hard to really get a great sense of what type of player he was. But now that you've got nearly 7,000 at bats, you start to get a more full picture of the type of player we're looking at.
And we're talking about a shortstop mainly. So
right,
those it's more difficult to accomplish those numbers as a shortstop than any other position besides catcher.
Exactly.
So we're talking about a great ball player.
Absolutely. So this was I was trying to visualize take the previous slide and then visualize the different places he went. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that across the top are the years. That's 1938, 1939, 1940. The gaps in between are the winters. So you can see that in the late 30s there, he was playing in the major Negro leagues. Then in 1940, he started splitting his time between the majors and Mexico. And you can see that he started spending his winters in Puerto Rico. And then from 43 to 45, he spent over 3 years serving in the military during World War II. When he came back again, it was splitting the summers between the major Negro leagues and Mexico, and then the winters were Puerto Rico essentially for the rest of his career, except you can see that there's one winter that he spent in Cuba. And then you can see that as the major Negro leagues ended in 1948, he moved to the organized minor leagues where he was playing much more often. And you can even see that one square where he played in the major AL and NL as well. And that one box that he played independent ball in Canada. And we're going to look at his numbers from each of these stops right now. So these are the major Negro League numbers. So across 5 years, he totaled 159 games. And the nice thing about 159 games, it's about the size of what a current day major league season would be. So you can say, what would his stats look like in a full season? And that full season looks amazing. 323, over a 400 on base percentage, 543 slugging, again from a shortstop. And you can see these extra base hits, 38 doubles, 7 triples, 25 home runs, and 140 runs batted in 159 games. And, this is across the span of, 9 years or something, but only a total of 159 games. Just a great player. Next, we've got the numbers in Puerto Rico, which we have a much bigger sample because he was there 11 years and we had full winters there, over 2,000 at bats. And you can see, again, the 300 batting average and the 500 slugging percentage. 98 home runs is among the best in league history as well. And you can see that he played 4 times in the Caribbean Series as well. 3 of them for Santurce, 1 of them as a reinforcement player, I believe, for San Juan, because he did not play for San Juan during the season. And, his numbers were decent there as well, 278 batting average with a home run. But one of those years, and I think it was 53 here, where he was the player manager, and he hit 467 and managed the Santurce team to an undefeated championship of the Caribbean Series. In Mexico, we have another 250 games, and you can see here that his numbers look very similar. And I think that says a lot wherever he played, his numbers were consistently great, because I think what that means is that, the major leagues weren't the only place great players were playing. Great players were playing all over the place, like Mexico, like Puerto Rico. You can see that the one blip on his negative blip on his career is his one season in Cuba, where, it's a small sample, 106 at bats. I almost missed this. I happened to be looking through this book on Cuban baseball by Jorge Figueredo, and I happened to see Jim Clarkson was listed on the Alacranes roster, and I almost missed that it was Buster because they used his first name, Jim, which I had never seen in a statistical record before, but unfortunately hit just 198 that season. Maybe that's why he decided to never go back again. And then in 1948, he played in Canada there, and he hit over 400 with 31 home runs in 88 games. Just torched that league on another level.
Yeah, he was good everywhere.
Yes. And then here I have just his stats from a couple of East-West All-Star games. Not a large sample here, just wanted to be complete about all the games that I have. All right, so if we go to the next slide, you can see it all in one table, all of the different categories of stats, so to speak. And you can see that for the most part, he's basically hitting 300 and slugging 500 everywhere that he went. And below the totals, I have his per 600 at-bats for his entire career, so you can get an idea of what an entire season would look like. And just as a reminder, you can see that for Canada, I don't have the runs and runs batted in. So these per 600 stats are treating those as zeros. So his RBI and runs scored should actually be a little bit higher. So this is just a remarkable player. 29 home runs, 32 doubles, 312, 527. And we're talking across 6,776 at-bats. So this is no small sample.
Yep.
And that is my statistical summary of Buster Clarkson. And I'm going to hand the mic over to Jorge now to share some information specifically about his time in Puerto Rico, which I am very excited to learn more about.
Well, his debut was with Mayagüez on November 10th, 1940. And in that first game, he became the first to hit 2 homers in an inning against Ponce. 1 month later, he hit for the cycle. That photo is him with Mayagüez.
So he hit 2 home runs in 1 inning on his debut?
Yes.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. He got a great, his teammate was Buck Leonard, first baseman. Leonard was led the league in homers. That was the 1-2 of Mayagüez that year. And here we see him with Caguas, Bill Perkins, Dan Banghead, and Buster Clarkson. 1946-47. 1948-49, he played with Ponce. We can see here with Robert Lynn, Clarkson, Javier Resigno, Joe Atkins, and Fernando Diaz Pedroso. That picture was taken at Sixto Escobar Stadium. In 1950-51, he became the first and only player with 15-plus homers and 15-plus stolen bases. 18 homers and 16 stolen bases in a season.
Oh, that reminds me. The Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico website doesn't have his stolen base numbers. So all of my averages for his career included 0 stolen bases for Puerto Rico. So he was a much faster player than my stats show.
Yeah. That's the 50-51 Santurce team. That's the first championship they won. Clarkson is there. Here is Buster Clarkson. Here is.
Oh yeah, right in the middle there.
Yeah, the manager was George Scales.
Oh boy, Tubby.
Yeah, here is George Scale in the corner, and they won. That was the first championship for Santurce. They began in 1939. They have to wait a lot, and it was a great. I have a footage about that game that they won the championship, and we're going to see Buster Clarkson hitting a home run, and he has broad shoulders. We're going to see that later. When he was manager in 1953, he won the Caribbean Series second championship for Santurce, and the second win in the Caribbean Series. They won 6-0. And this one, the 1954-55, the great, I named this team the Perfect Machine, that had Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, Sam Jones won the Triple Crown. Sam Jones later threw the first no-hitter, first Afro-American to throw a no-hitter in the big leagues. And Bill Gleason, Ruben Gomez, Don Zimmer, Ronnie Sanford, Roberto Clemente, of course.
That was just an unbelievable team.
Yes.
So that was George Crow at first. We had Zimmer at short, an outfield. So Clarkson was at third that year. I forget who the second baseman and catcher were, but they both played in the major leagues as well, right?
Yeah, Harry Chiti was the catcher,
Hmm.
Cubs, and the second baseman was Ronnie
Right,
Sanford. And left
right, and then
field, left field was Roberto Clemente. Right, center field was Willie Mays. Right field was Bob Thurman.
unbelievable.
But when Luis Rodriguez Olmo played the right field, the three Clemente, Mays, and Olmo catch the ball basket. It's the only team that you had the three outfielders that field the ball basket. Clemente, Mays, and Luis Rodriguez Olmo. And listen to this. When Clemente won the World Series in 1971, they asked him, "This is the best team you have been?" And he said, "No, the Cangrejero de Santurce when we won the Caribbean Series," and he was referring to this team, Cangrejeros 1955. So Clemente said that that team was better than the Pittsburgh team of 1971. And here you can see from left to right, Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, Buster Clarkson, Bob Thurman, and George Crow.
That is a murderer's row right there. And, a lot of the players on that team, it wasn't just the hitters, too. It reminds me that another episode I think we could do someday is about some of these pitchers that maybe just don't get as much of the attention. Like Ruben Gomez, I think would be an excellent topic as well.
Yes, I mean, we can do a program of Gomez, and we could do a program about this team in particular. What
Mhm.
happened? Because people think that they began to win since the beginning, and no, they with all those stars they had problems at the beginning. It wasn't until Pedrin Sorrilla signed Don Zimmer that the team, the center line established level, had a good
Mhm.
because they had Artie Wilson in second baseman, and Artie Wilson was very, in his last years. And Artie Wilson, Herman Franks was the manager, and he wanted to leave out Artie Wilson, and Pedrin didn't want to leave out Artie. Um, he was very paternal with his players. So one day, Artie Wilson broke his finger, and that's when they got Ronnie Sanford.
Mm.
And Mayagüez left out Don Zimmer, and Santurce signed him. So they had a new combination of Ronnie Sanford and Don Zimmer. And from that on, the team, began to win and win and win and win. And they had a great season, and Willie Mays was the MVP that year in the National League, so he was a big star already. And
Right.
Willie Mays practiced with Clemente every morning in the Sisto Escobar Stadium at 11 o'clock, because when Roberto Clemente was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in November 22, 1954, Branch Rickey sent him a letter telling Roberto, "Welcome to the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. We need you to work with two things. Number one, you open too much running the bases. And number two, you take two steps throwing the ball." So Willie Mays began to practice with the Roberto Clemente every morning. And you know what Roberto Clemente then, what Roberto Clemente became after that. But Willie Mays helped him a lot.
That is amazing.
This is Buster Clarkson in the Caribbean series. We already, Adam already shown what he did. That the best one was that 1953 467, and,
Mhm.
and as a manager, he was player manager. That's his record in Puerto Rico. He played with Mayagüez 1 year with Caguas, two with Ponce, and the six with Santurce. Okay, players with 60 plus RBIs and runs in a season. You have Bob Thurman, Willard Brown, Bob Thurman again, Willard Brown, George Crow, Bob Thurman, and in 1950-51, you had uh, Buster Clarkson. And you can notice that he's the only infielder besides middle infielder, because George Crow was a first baseman, but middle infielder
Mhm.
was Buster Clarkson. And so it's more difficult to accomplish those numbers as a shortstop than as an outfielder. and that tells you the greatness of this Buster Clarkson.
What's really interesting about this list is that in all of the league history, all the seasons like this came in a 3-year span, and almost all of the players were in Santurce, and the one that wasn't, they ended up getting.
Yeah, yeah. Pedrin Zorrilla signed a lot of Negro leaguers, but any Negro leaguer any good player that he saw, like Satchel Paige, Roy Campanella, George Crow, that he liked, he signed him with Santurce. Lifetime home run leaders, Buster Clarkson, 98, sixth position. Um, there are only 4 or 5 that uh, hit 100 or more homers. The leader is Bob Thurman.
And I think you told me this. Did you tell me that Jose Cruz did not realize he was 1 home run away from the record when he retired?
Nobody told him. He hit number 120, but it was rain, suspended by
Oh,
rain.
right.
And nobody told him that he was need one more to tie with Bob Thurman, and he retired. I talked with him about that, and he said, "Man, if anybody would have told me that," and he said, "Where were you in that time?" And I said, "Yeah, well, I was not over in any place, but you can be sure that if I was working with the league, you will have had, I will have told you that you have to keep for that playing for that 120 homers."
Hmm.
A great guy, Jose Cruz. Uh, this is the ratio, home run ratio. He has the third best home run ratio in the league. The first one, Wheeler Brown, 1 homer every 19.21 at bats. Then Orlando Cepeda at 20.78 at bat, and Buster Clarkson with 1 homer every 21.05 at bat. And then comes Ismael Oquendo, another Puerto Rican, Edward Hendricks, Baltimore catcher, Hector Villanueva, who played with the Cubs, another catcher, and Bob Thurman.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I remember Hector Villanueva as a kid watching WGN,
Yes.
and seeing him. That was right around the time when he was the backup catcher there, and I was like, I didn't think of as a home run hitter, but he had 516 plate appearances in the National League, and he hit 25 home runs. So this guy was a home run hitter.
Yeah, he won the Triple Crown in Puerto Rico also. RBIs, you see Buster Clarkson with 461, 8 plays for, and you see here again, Pagan was an infielder, shortstop, third baseman, and Buster Clarkson was an infielder, and Felix Torres, who played with the California Angels, he was an infielder too, third baseman. All the other ones were outfielders.
Mhm.
And Canina Luis Marquez playing every position. He began
Right.
shortstop, then playing third baseman, and then he played outfield.
He's another we'll talk about at some point.
Yes, yes. He was the first black player signed by the New York Yankees, although he never played with them in the big leagues. This is the RBI ratio. Second is Buster Clarkson. Only Wheeler Brown was better. Then you have Bob Thurman, Perucho Cepeda, the father of Orlando, then Orlando, Tani Perez. We call him Tani in Puerto Rico. In the United States, they call him Tony. Again, Ismael Oquendo. That was a first baseman lefty, very powerful batter. Luis Rodriguez Olmo play with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and again Hector Villanueva. In runs, Luis Marquez is number one, and you can see there Buster Clarkson with 448. Best run ratio per at bats, Buster Clarkson is the best.
Wow. Ahead of Totelo. Wow.
Yes, second Tetero Vargas, third Wheeler Brown, fourth Luis Marquez, Jose Cruz, Carlos Bernier, another speedster, Bob Thurmans, Nino Escalera, the first black player to play with Cincinnati, Big Power, and Juan Jose Benitez. You see, Adam, all these names, you can savor the all the big names that play in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I mean, if people don't mind me sharing, a couple of the names that I've been searching on here that people might not know, Luis Canena Marquez and Carlos Bernier. These are two of the players I've collected stats on. And Bernier, I've found 3,563 hits for, and Marquez has 3,468. So these two played a long time in many different countries and just have incredible numbers when you add them all up.
So lifetime ratios, runs ratio is the all-time best with 4.6 at bat, every at bat. RBI ratio, he is second best with 448, and at home run ratio, he's the third best with one home run every 21.05 at bat. So quite good, excellent lifetime ratios for Buster Clarkson. This is the one I like. 104 with lifetime average of 300 and 500 slugging. The only ones are Wheeler Brown, then Orlando Cepeda, Bob Thurman, and Buster Clarkson. Those are the four ball players that have a lifetime average of 300 plus and slugging of 500 plus. And the four of them play mainly with Santurce.
Right. I was going to ask, I know that Brown, Thurman, and Clarkson were teammates. Did Cepeda's career ever overlap with them at all? Were they ever teammates?
Yes. He played with Wheeler Brown and Bob Thurman. When I once saw a photo when Wheeler Brown connected his 100 home run, that he became the first one, and I said, the photos you can see Orlando Cepeda waiting for him in home plate. So I go to Orlando and ask him, Orlando, you remember when Wheeler Brown connected hit his 100 homer? And he said, yes, I was waiting him in the home plate. so he remembered because he was in second base. And he remembered when he greeted Wheeler Brown when the Ese Hombre connected his 100th home run, the first one. Then Bob Thurman was the second one, and Thurman continued to play in Puerto Rico.
Amazing.
This is a picture in 1953, February 1953. That was after they won the World Series. That's a fiesta that Pedrin had. And you can see Wheeler Brown, Buster Clarkson hugging Pedrin, Pantalones Santiago standing up. And those are the three ball players, and Pedrin Zorrilla in the middle. Pedrin Zorrilla was a great guy. He deserves a program because all the things that he did for all these Negro League players in Puerto Rico. For example, Dixie, after Dixie retired, he stayed in Puerto Rico, and Pedrin gave him work at his gas station. And so on. There are so many stories about the relationship that Pedrin Zorrilla had with all these Negro League players. I remember Emilio Navarro told me everyone wanted to play with Pedrin Zorrilla because he treated us so good. And Emilio Navarro played all his life with Ponce, but he said that he would always like to play with Pedrin Zorrilla because he was so good with both players. And Buster Clarkson was the first manager of Roberto Clemente in 1952, 1953. And he helped Clemente in his rookie year. That you see Clemente using number 39. That was the first year of Clemente in Puerto Rico. As a matter of fact, last October 21st was his debut, his anniversary, October 21st, 1952. So Clarkson was the first manager of Clemente.
That is amazing that the first manager of he was the first manager of Clemente, and then his first manager, Clarkson first manager, was Oscar Charleston. That's just an incredible timeline of baseball there.
And I read that Clarkson said that since he saw Clemente, he knew that he was going to be a superstar in the big leagues. At that time, Clemente played left field mostly.
Right, because that was the season, well, I guess it was 54-55, the championship season, where In 1954, Clemente had played for Montreal in the Dodgers system, and then that winter is when he actually moved to Pittsburgh via the Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
So that was like a special time for him, where when he changed over to the Pirates organization.
Yeah, let me tell you, it was the best thing that happened to Roberto Clemente that they draft him because he only hit exactly 3,000 hits. Okay,
Mhm.
so if he would have stayed with the Dodgers, he wouldn't get 3,000 hits because he was not going to play regularly because they had Sandy Amoros and they had Furillo and they have Snyder. So any time that he didn't play, he wouldn't, it would affect him his total of 3,000 hits. So he was very lucky that Pittsburgh Pirates draft him. And the other thing is that if you see the record of Roberto Clemente, his first 5 years, if he was not so great. What happens is that he did not had the time to develop in the minor leagues. He only played 1 year in AAA, so we went to Santurce from Santurce to AAA to the big leagues. But luckily for him, Pittsburgh Pirates was a last place team, and with Clemente in center field and then right field, they were not going to go be worse than last place. So they let him mature as a player. And in 1960 is when, from 1960 on, is what Clemente became the Clemente that we know. But that Clemente didn't have the opportunity to mature as almost every player, in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And see, here we see Clemente in 1954-55 beating Greet by Willie Mays at the left and Buster Clarkson. Look how young Clemente looks, how skinny.
It's
Uh,
incredible.
yeah, this is another. That picture was in 1955. You see Bob Thurman, Pedrin Zorrilla, Sam Jones, who won the Triple Crown that year, the first pitcher to win the Triple Crown in Puerto Rico, and he was the MVP. And there is Bill Greason, who had a great year, and Buster Clarkson. Buster Clarkson, I have seen many pictures with that hat,
Hmm.
that type of hat. He liked that. And here he's even that's the same day with Bob Thurman. I think that was after they won the championship. They were celebrating. Here you see him with the great George Craw at Sister Escobar Stadium in that great season. There is Monchile Concepcion, who played in the Negro Leagues. He was the coach of Santurce, and that season 1954-55, that's Clarkson. You can see that those shoulders, he was a
Mhm.
broad shoulders, he was like an ox, very, very strong. And we're going to see it. Let's see if we can this goes well with this video. This video is February 17th, 1951, when Santurce won their first championship against Caguas. It was a home run by Jose Lucas. It is known as the Pepe Lucaso, and it was the same year. This is the version of the Bobby Thompson home run with the New York Giants. Let's see this. See, we have luck. Uh, no, we don't have it. Oh man, no, we no luck. Sorry, folks. Well, it shows uh, Buster Clarkson hitting a home run, and we could see his physique, uh, how strong he looked, and after he hit the home run, people giving money, dollar bills in the fence, putting dollar bills so he can, because in that time when a player hit a home run, people gave money to him and to the player, and you can see people putting dollar bills across the fence, and Buster Clarkson taking the money. Sorry, folks. So, Buster Clarkson was named to the Puerto Rico Professional Baseball Hall of Fame in 1996, and the Caribbean Series Hall of Fame in 2020. He got to the Caribbean Series Hall of Fame thanks to my friend and colleague Tom Van Heining, who wrote all his numbers and submitted his case. And he thanks to Tom Van Heining, my friend and writer, uh, Buster Carson and Bob Thurman both got in Caribbean Series Hall of Fame. They were all the both of them were forgotten. And when sometimes in these committees there are young people, the old guys have to come in and batter up, and Tom Manheim say, hey, we have to put uh, we have to make a case for Buster Clarkson about Thermal because we're getting old, and if we die, maybe they're not going to get in. And so we had good luck, and they accepted and they inducted them. And in 2014, he was elected as one of the best 75 players of the Puerto Rico Baseball League. So that's the performance of Buster Clarkson in Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much for sharing those incredible photos. What I love about this is not only just seeing the photos of the subject that we're covering, but the other photos that we're seeing as well. Just seeing that young Roberto Clemente and seeing Willie Mays just with all of those great Santurce players. I love seeing these. I learn so much every time. So thank you for that, Jorge.
No, yeah, and as we do these programs, we say we have to do a program for this player, and we have to do a program for this player. So God help us, we're going to make a lot of programs of all these great players, so people can know all the history, the rich history of Puerto Rico baseball.
Yeah, you know who else I want to do one about? I've been talking about him to a lot of people lately. Is Juan Pizarro, because his win total is 394 wins across all the different leagues. So just another great one there. So tell me a little bit about the Caribbean Series and what that means to baseball in the Caribbean, because it just seems like it's a true World Series. Like, everybody in the US is finally getting all excited about the World Baseball Classic, but I feel like you all have had this for years and years and you've been enjoying it, and you're probably saying to yourself, why have you not been watching this one that we're doing all along?
Yes, when in the beginning it was four teams only. Now they have about 8, 9, 10 teams. This year they're going to Miami. The next one is in Miami, in the Marlins Park. And as you say, it is going up and up and up and up. And in the United States, they're taking interest in that Caribbean series. And I think it's going to be one of the best Caribbean series, this next one in 2024. But in that first stage, it was the first stage from 1948 to 1960. In that first stage, Cuba and Puerto Rico dominated. The other teams was Venezuela and Panama. And then in 1970 was the second stage. And from then on, even 4 teams, and then we got Dominican Republic. Now, right now, the strongest league right now is definitely Dominican Republic. They have so many players, and what happens with Puerto Rico is that we have good players, because when we go to the World Classic, we have a second place in the world, but we have all players have to come to Puerto Rico and play. Dominican Republic had so many players that if some of them don't play, they got others, and they stay strong. We cannot do that. We have to have all our players. If we have all our players, we can win the Caribbean Series more often. But it's not. Yeah, that's not a reality. So, but Puerto Rico is second. Dominican Republic is first, and we have a huge, excellent history in the Caribbean Series. And Santurce Cangrejero was the first team in the Caribbean Series history to win it 3 times: 51, 53, and 55. And Cuba, you have that book of Jorge Figueredo. You're going to see all those uh, teams that the great Cuban teams that participate in saw action in the Caribbean series. So yes, the Caribbean series is taking I think it's taking a good step to bring that to the United States. And I would like to maybe, sometimes there's so many Puerto Ricans in Florida to see games of Santurce, Caguas, and Mayagüez, a series in Orlando.
Mm.
There's many Puerto Ricans. Right now, the Dominicans are going to play in the, I think, City Field. They have a
Oh,
series over
that's
there.
right. I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yes,
Ooh.
and so those type of games in the United States helps the history. Helps Latino baseball to people realize how important, how rich Latino baseball is. In our case, Puerto Rico, well, as we have talked, we have been slowly but steady. People have begun to notice. People are beginning to look at Puerto Rico and say, hey, there's a lot of things that we have to find in Puerto Rico, learn about Puerto Rico, because they have done a great amount of things for baseball, and very important Puerto Rico in the history of baseball. And I know that you with your research you have noticed that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been collecting these stats. I've got 49 players now that I've like kind of built these long statistical resumes for. And one thing that I noticed over and over again is that the great players of that era played in the Caribbean series, whether it was with Puerto Rico or with one of the Cuban teams, or even seeing, like Patricio Scantlebury and Leon Kelman representing Panama. It just seemed like a who's who of the Black and Latin American players, and it's just yet another one of those series. First I was learning about the Negro Leagues and all the great players that played there. Then I'm learning about Cuba and Puerto Rico and Mexico and all the great places that they played. And now it's like I'm learning about the Caribbean series where all of those groups came together and it was like this super league. So it's really fascinating.
Yes, because I remember when you began with the Negro Leagues, and you begin with the Negro Leagues, but the Latino baseball comes hand in hand with the Negro Leagues, and then you begin as a researcher. You say, "Hey, what happened here?" And then now you get the Caribbean cities. What happened here? And
Mhm.
you're gonna keep going and going and going and reading these books that you're reading right now, and you're gonna notice there's a lot of history, and I know you're gonna enjoy it as a researcher, as an historian. You're gonna enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. So, all I can do is recommend that people like, thank you for checking out this episode, but I encourage people to look at the previous episodes of Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico. And then, of course, the future ones that we're going to be doing. We've mentioned this book a couple times, Cuban Baseball by Jorge Figueredo. That's one that's been huge for me. There's also one by, Cisneros about the Mexican League. And, I think there's an opportunity to have a version of this book on the Puerto Rican League if there's a collection of stats and stories and things like that. I don't know if there's one that exists already that you can recommend, or if maybe that's something that could potentially be put together.
No, there's no book like that of Cuban League. You know that was the that book that you have in your hand was the book that make an impact on me. I was in Cooperstown, and I went to the library to buy books and bookshop, and I saw that book in English, and I said, "How come a Cuban in exile has done a book like this, and we don't have any book of Puerto Rico?" That shocked me. And from that on, 1999, that was July 1999, because it was induction of Orlando Cepeda.
Mm.
And I said, I'm going to investigate and I'm going to write about Puerto Rico. And I haven't written a book like that, but I have digitalized the records. And I think if you digitalize, you get to more people.
Mm.
Because you get to more people than in the book, and a book is more difficult, more money. i
Right.
don't know I don't know how much you can how much money you need to publish a book like that of Jorge Figueredo. It was a great book, and he has, I don't know him, but he has all my admiration as an author. So that has to be a lot of work to do a book about Cuba, being outside of Cuba.
Mhm. All right. Well, I am here to help with spreading the word of the history of Puerto Rico and the baseball league there from 1938 on, but even beforehand, anything that we can learn about the players even before the league began. Like one thing that I have to ask you about sometime. What is it called? Liga Insular? Is that what the league was called before the professional league?
Liga Insular was from during the year, but not in winter. In winter, we have that Liga Extranjera, foreign leagues. That's when the
Okay.
Negro League teams came to Puerto Rico, Concordia from Venezuela, Estrella de Ramirez from the United States. And that's when we get to see for the first time Joshua Gibson with the Brooklyn Eagles, Vic Harris, Satchel Paige, Leon Day. That period from 1931, 32 to 37, 36, 37. And I'm investigating of that. I have almost all the rosters, all the players that play, and that's a very interesting period of baseball in Puerto Rico. So many players who came here. Johnny Mize came to Puerto Rico in that period too. So Martin the Eagle, he threw a no-hitter in Puerto Rico
Mm.
here. So there's a lot. There's still, I think that there's history from the professional baseball league, 1938 to the present. But before that, there's still a lot of obscure areas that we have to research, do our research.
Right, because like we had an episode about Pancho Coimbre, for example, and how he began with the professional league with Ponce in 1938, but he was playing with them back to 1926, from what I can find. So it's really interesting to learn more about what baseball looked like in Puerto Rico before the league went fully professional and things like that. So we have so many things that we'll talk about for years to come, Jorge. Don't worry.
I hope so. I hope so. Another ball player that he didn't play in the Negro Leagues, but he was a great one, Perucho Cepeda.
Oh yeah, that's the player that's why the Liga Insular that's where I first saw it was with his article on the Center for Negro Leagues Baseball Research, and I was like, oh, I don't know that term. So
Yeah, and he was voted the best imported player in 1934 in Venezuela, and he played in Dominican Republic, and he was a shortstop. He was like Buster Clarkson, shortstop batting fourth, and that was it was not common to see a shortstop batting fourth.
mhm.
So that's another great. Although he didn't play in the big, he received three invitations: Big Harris, Clarence Span, and Alejandro Pompes. Three invitations to go to the state, but he said no because he was very strong temperamental, and he knew he couldn't deal with the segregation. But although he didn't play in the United States, I think we have to do a program about him.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that he's so fascinating, just because of his bloodlines and his son who insists that dad was even better. And even just I don't have as many stats for him, but I do have stats from like age 32 on, and we see like a 325 hitter with power, and it's just amazing to think what he must have been like the 10 years prior to that if he was
Mhm.
that good later in his career. I mean, he won the first two batting titles at over 400, right? Yeah, just
He won, well, and he's the only Puerto Rican to bat 400 in two positions. He did it as a shortstop and as a first baseman. And he won. He didn't win the Triple Crown because Joshua Gibson hit one more home run than him. So if Joshua Gibson would not play in Puerto Rico that year, he would have been the first Triple Crown winner in Puerto Rico. He was a great, great, great player, and we have to do a program of Perucho Cepeda.
yeah, absolutely. It's hard to lead the league in home runs when Josh Gibson is in the league. Buster Clarkson one year finished second in Mexico to Gibson in home runs. Clarkson, yeah, how many did Clarkson hit that year? Gosh, he hit like I think it was 17 home. No, this is probably 1941. He hit 19 home runs. Again, this is just an 82 game season, but that year was just so happened to be the one that Josh Gibson broke the league home run record. So
Yeah, yep. So Perucho, those 3 years, and we have to say that the first year of the league in 1938, he had 32 years already.
right.
So he was, in at that time, 32 years was old, and he was good 32, 33, 34 years. So, yeah, and the position he played, shortstop, very demanding physical, that takes its toll too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. His numbers dropped off in the mid 40s as he reached his 40s, but the stats like 465 in 1938-39 in the first season was the MVP of the league, and then 383 the next year to win a second batting title, and he's slugging 594, 565 in these leagues. He's got speed. He stole 13 bases that second year. Just so fascinating, and one of people talk a lot about who's the greatest player to never play in the major leagues, and I think that people talk about Sadahara O, and I think Perucho Cepeda has to be the other big one. Omar Linares is another one that people mention from Cuba. Gosh, he's on that short list. He's just amazing. And
I'm gonna ask you something. I mean, do you think that I should include Perucho Cepeda in the Negro Leaguers in Puerto Rico page, although he did not play in the Negro Leagues, and put an asterisk, that he did not play? So I put his record and his highlights in English so people in the United States can know what he did.
I would probably recommend that because there are people that definitely are interested in him. Like when I talk about these players, like the one that makes people's eyes light up the most is when I mention Perucho Cepeda, because a lot of times people have heard that Orlando had his father who also played, but there's been no stats for him. But you are the only one that has stats for him. Like he almost all of the stats we have for him are in Puerto Rico. I think there's
there's a doctor that makes some book of Perucho, Dr. Libol.
I don't. Dr. Yes, Leighton Ravel.
That's one.
Yes.
He did something about Perucho.
He did, but statistically, the only thing he had outside of Puerto Rico were 53 at bats for Maracaibo in Venezuela in 1939, and he hit 321. This is what Perucho does. He just hits 300 wherever he goes. But everything else is in Puerto Rico, and I'd be so interested to see more and to learn more about him. There are some stats that they have for the Ciudad Trujillo team that he played with, that famous 1937 team. I don't think he was in the starting lineup for that team because they had Sammy Bankhead, but he was on the roster. So unfortunately,
Alaman, the only Puerto Rican in that team.
That's right. I heard that Pancho was
later.
He'd later joined the team. Okay.
Yeah. But to be in the first stage of the team, and Sacha Page contract him, Sacha Page knew about him because Sacha saw him in that foreign league in Puerto Rico in those winters.
Right.
And I have to take this guy to the Dominican Republic with me.
That is something that we'll have to talk about during the Perucho episode, because that 1937 Dominican season was so interesting because they brought in so much talent, and then it bankrupted the league, and that set Dominican baseball back for years and years, and that opened up the possibility for Puerto Rico to become the power that it was, that recruited all of the Negro League players, because the professional league started the very next year.
So much
so interesting.
So much to do.
Well, I can't wait to talk about all of these topics. So that is amazing. So thank you again so much for sharing this knowledge of Buster Clarkson, and then talking about all these wonderful topics afterwards with me.
Sure. So we'll see you until we'll until the next chapter. We don't know when it's gonna be, but there's gonna be. We're gonna continue with our work, Alan and me. I'm going to continue with this project. It's a beautiful project. So keep tuned, and we're gonna inform by Twitter and by Facebook when it's gonna be the next chapter. So on behalf of my friend Adam Dabrowski, myself, thank you for being with us. It will be until the next time. God bless you.
Take care.